And I really do well in conversation. I'm here to answer any questions afterwards.
Awesome, thank you. So when, I was thinking of building this educational forum, it was really important for me to kind of step out and feel like we really needed to bring Steve Elliott here from Toke Signals from Washington State, because we don't have to wonder what's going to happen with a law that could push the medical providers off the map. We've already kind of seen this happen this year, I believe they enacted. And so I want to thank Steve Elliott, first of all, for taking his day off and traveling here to help educate. And I just want to really thank you for putting a cannabis journal out there that I've enjoyed reading for many moons. And it's really important to have journalists like Dragonfly and Steve Elliott in our mix, because we have to create our own media about this too. Because when I read what's out there in just the plain old media, I just want to cry. So, Steve, take it away. Let us know what's happening even further north.
First of all, I'm thrilled to death to see the room full of people that cared enough to come out and show up tonight. You guys want to know more, you want to know how to preserve this community, and let me tell you, this community is worth preserving. I love this energy that you have here, and I'm very impressed. Look, I'm on the stage with 3 border women. I am so honored to be up here with these people. If you want to know, if you want to talk to experts about the California scene, you've got these 3 women right here. I'm not an expert on the California scene. I'm an outside observer. I'm kind of on the sidelines, but I'm a very concerned observer, because I'm a journalist and I'm a cannabis advocate and I'm a medical marijuana patient. So I care very much what happens in California. I lived in Southern California, LA area, from 1999 to 2005. So I'm not totally alien to you guys. And I have local roots. My daughter's a freshman at Berkeley. I wrote for the SF Weekly also, briefly in 2009. It's kind of how I crossed over from straight journalism into cannabis journalism. What happened along my journey from there to here, it's been a really learning experience, and part of that is thanks to people like these ladies I have on stage with me here tonight. In 2010, I was running a blog for Village Voice Media. It was called Toke of the Town, and I never had a problem expressing my opinion on there, but I have been wrong about things before, and Prop 19 was one of those things that I was wrong about. I was in favor of it on Toke of the Town. Dragonfly opposed it. Dragonfly was right. I was wrong. I don't mind admitting that to you. I learned that 2 years later. I mean, I'm like a lot of people. I saw legalization and I thought, okay, a step forward. I've been fighting all my life for access to this plant. I want everyone to have access to the cannabis plant without fear of any legal reprisal. That is my goal. Universal access. But when I saw legalization, I thought, okay, we're going to take these little incremental steps forward. We got to take what they give us. Dragonfly read the thing closely enough to see what was wrong with it. And she tried to point those things out. I wasn't ready to hear until 2 years later. In Washington State, we had another Drug Policy Alliance type of legislation called I-502, Initiative 502. Legalization, once again. But it's the type of legalization that I prefer to call corporatization, because it favors the big money. Let me tell you, when a community changes over from being about compassion and sharing to being about profits, it changes things, people, and not in a good way. I've seen this happen to my community, and it has torn it apart. I'm very impressed that when Shona started talking, some of the first things she said about the patients that she cares for and looks out for, minorities, women, low income. We got to look out for people. We got to remember the compassion and the sharing upon which this cannabis community is built. And we can't get lost in this rush for the dollars. We can't lose what's most important and what's most valuable and what's most worth preserving about this community. It's what makes us special. We can't become just another corporate endeavor. We have to be something different. We have to be something special. We have to honor this cannabis plant. We all share in common this brings us here together tonight. We have to remember what cannabis has done for each of us as individuals. We have to remember what it's done for our health. We have to remember what it's done for our spirituality and our evolution as beings, as citizens of the universe. This is important stuff. We have to guard against this kind of thing happening. Now that's a little bit from the past. I-502 passed in 2012. I tried to warn people, and to this day, in the Washington marijuana community, there are people who still aren't speaking to each other from 2012 to 2016. There are people who haven't spoken to me since 2012 because I opposed I-502. There are journalists writing within the cannabis community who, if they ever do mention me, which is seldom, they might say, Steve Elliott, who had a rising reputation until 2012 when he opposed I-502 legalization in Washington. They act like that ruined my reputation in the cannabis community. Well, let me tell you, anybody who thinks that ruins my reputation, stick up for the patients. I don't care about their opinion. Because if I have to go down, I want it to be for a cause. And if it's for the cause of safe access for the patients, then so be it. Because I am not going to stop speaking out. And I am now joining with people like Dragonfly who tells you to watch out for the corporatization of this plant. We have as much right to use this plant in any way that it benefits us as anyone on earth. And we can't have corporations coming in and telling us, look, we're here now, we are the suits and ties, we have the money, and you guys, you know, you're a bunch of dirty hippies, and, you know, it was nice for you to bring it to this
Patience
song.
over profits.
Right.
Patience over profits is right. We can't accept their propaganda. Now, if they want to wear suits and if they want to be corporate drones and bureaucrats, that's fine. That's not what we want. We just want to be healthy. We want to be happy. We want to be able to share this journey together as members of this community. That's more important than anybody's corporate profits. And I tell you tonight that that is something worth preserving. And what we're facing now in California is not a lot different than what we have up in Washington. And I will tell you, it took about 5 minutes after I-502 passed in November 2012. The voters approved it. They just saw the word legalization. I was trying to tell everybody, read this thing. Please read it. You don't get to grow. You don't get to drive. You don't get to smoke in public. Guess who those laws are most enforced against now? There's still racial disparity that Dragonfly told you about. Because smoking in public law, almost all of the people who are busted for smoking in public are young minority males in Seattle. What the hell? We haven't even stopped arresting young minority males, and we've been legalized for 4 years in Washington. We can do better than that. If you give the cops a loophole through which they can continue their policies of de facto prohibition, they are going to go through that loophole. If you say we can have up to an ounce, they're going to get you for 30 grams. They're going to find a loophole and get you. There are certain cops who are not friendly to our culture. They're not friendly to our way of being in the world. There are some cops who are sympathetic. I will grant that. But there are many, many of them, and I have a lifetime of unfortunate experiences with these guys who don't like us much. I don't return their hatred, but I do exercise caution when I'm dealing with these people. That is what you got to do. You got to be cautious. It doesn't get you anywhere to hate. That's a waste of energy. But let me tell you, look out, watch your back, because a lot of these people do not have your best interest in mind. Now, when the corporate guys come in with their briefcases full of cash, a lot of people get their heads turned. And some people in Washington got their heads turned. They are now part of that. But let me tell you, they gave us a line about that corporate marijuana being so much safer. Right now in Washington State, they allow more than 250 pesticides on that I-502 marijuana. Do you think a patient...
How many of those does Monsanto own?
Good question, and I'll bet it's several of them. And if you have a compromised immune system, if you like me, your liver's not working so well anymore, you don't need to be ingesting poisons. You don't need to be smoking microbutanil like Eagle 20. That's an antifungal used by lots of these I-502 growers up there. Guess what microbutanil turns into when you smoke it? It turns into cyanide. The stuff is approved for use on things like grapes, but you don't smoke grapes. It's not a one-to-one comparison between grapes and cannabis, because you're not going to be lighting a grape up in a bowl. This stuff is the deleterious effects of some of these chemicals that are used on this marijuana may not show up for years. It may be a cumulative poison that builds up in people's systems, but patients are no place to be experimenting with this kind of thing when we don't know the long-term effects of inhaling small amounts of cyanide every time you smoke a joint that's been treated for legal 20. These are the kind of concerns. Now, it's very important to tell everybody you know the things that you know about Prop 64 and the things that you know, bad things that could happen. I would love for it to be all hearts and flowers, but it's not how it's turned out to be up in Washington. It is not at all how it's turned out to be. So please exercise caution. Please preserve this wonderful community that you have. This is so worth preserving. And if it passes, fight it. If you're against it, fight it with all you've got. But if it passes, we've got to remember that life will go on and that we've got to fix it. Once it passes, none of us should rest until we get things back right again. That comes from not giving up. That comes from being stubborn. And I know as patients, a lot of you are just as stubborn as I am, because if we weren't stubborn, we wouldn't get up every morning and face another day. When nausea and pain are your constant companions, you have to have a stubborn streak a mile wide. I know that this community is stubborn enough to stick to the truth and to keep telling the truth and refuse to back down. Even if Prop 64 passes, you have to keep fighting. I would encourage you to do that. I would encourage you to inform yourself as much as you can all about the law, all about these issues with the law, and all about these bad things that can happen after they pass the law. Our legislature in Washington decided that I-502 didn't go far enough in protecting corporate interests. You know what they did? Our I-502 recreational marijuana merchants have their ear in the legislature because they have deep coffers, they have money, they make campaign contributions. They basically went into the legislature, people, and they bought the law they wanted to further the aims of I-502. That was Senate Bill 5052, which passed the Washington legislature last year. Those provisions kicked in fully on July the 1st of this year. So it took them really 4 years to implement this plan, all the way from legalization being approved by the voters to, oh, legalization, yeah, I want to read it, I'll vote for that. 4 years later, on July the 1st, overnight, from June 30th to July 1st at midnight, on June 30th, as patients in Washington State, we were allowed to have 24 ounces of dried flower. We were allowed to have 15 plants growing. After midnight, July 1st, suddenly 15 plants became 4 plants. 24 ounces became 3 ounces. And this isn't supposed to have any effect on people who, say, need large amounts of edible, needs large amounts of extract, needs large amounts of full extract cannabis oil, needs large amounts of topicals where you need poundage to make effective topicals. Suddenly, they don't have that option if they want to remain legal anymore. What are these people going to do? You got your health over here, you got the law over here. You pick your health. Of course we all pick our health. They have us in a corner there. But we're outside the law now. I know lots of mom and pop people who had a little circle of patient friends. They were taking care of them. It was like they make just enough to get by. Nobody was making a killing. People were taking care of each other. People were sharing. If there was a low-income patient, if there was a sick patient who didn't have any money, the rest of the circle would take care of them. I know that kind of thing happens here too. I know that's what these people are about. That is the difference between a profit-based corporate system and a system based on human beings who actually care for each other. And I'm telling you tonight, that is an important, crucial difference. Making it possible for me to be here tonight and tell you this, because as you may be able to tell, I've been bursting to tell someone about this, especially guys like you who you have this Prop 64 coming in. And I want you to know that I see what's happening here, and I'm with you guys. Now, there's not a lot I can do, but I got a website. I have some writing jobs that I can make things happen as far as information, getting it out to the people. And I'm telling you tonight that I am with you guys 100%. Anything that, any important news, any important facts that needs to get out there between now and the election and then after the election, when we keep fighting, whether or not it passes, we've got a lot of work to do. But as far as information, that's what I do, and I'm interested in getting the truth out there. So I'm thrilled to death to be able to network with you guys and to become part of this effort with you guys. Thank you.
When you mentioned the corporatization. The corporatization isn't just about big business and affecting the economical part of it. It's gonna really affect the quality of the medicine. This plant, I don't know how many of you have worked with the plant besides as medicine, but this plant, and I believe we all react to each other. Actually, science has proven that. And this plant really can be toxic if it's not grown with respect and honor, and it can be amazing if it's grown with respect and honor. And I jokingly say this in situations, but I mean it quite seriously. If we don't move forward in the way this plant has survived, I'm afraid that I'm going to sit to my grandchildren one day and said, I helped invent the new atom bomb because it went in that direction. I don't see how any being on this planet that has so many valuable properties can't be destructive. And I've seen it destroy lives my entire life when it's based on greed. So as a patient, we also need to take in consideration with Prop 64 of the value of the medicine that we're putting in our bodies. And small farmers regulate and grow in a way that is healthy for our bodies. We need that throughout all of our infrastructures of food. There's been a big rift between patients and farmers, or collectives and farmers. I mean, maybe is that a better way of saying it? I've always been in all, so I don't, but I hear this all the time. And this past year, I've seen it. And it is why they're getting at us. It's exactly why they're getting at us. Because all the people who really have been fighting this for so long are on opposite ends at the moment. And I think the more, just from knowing the farmer side, the more they hear you guys, because we're a little disconnected from the patient community in a lot of ways. I'll admit to that. But we also are a very compassionate, heart-based community. And we need to hear from you guys more in your stories and experiences on how our medicines are helping you. So that helps us fight for our rights in our areas also, so we can keep making those medicines for you on a small scale, not so it's another cigarette in your hand.
Well, like you're mentioning the disconnect between farmers and patients reminded me of another very important thing and a very valuable, precious thing that we had in Washington State up until July the 1st of this year, and that is cannabis farmers markets for patients and providers. And what you can do, or what you could do up until July the 1st in Washington, was you can go to one of these cannabis markets and you can talk directly to the person who grew that plant. You can talk to them about growing methods, you can talk to them about genetics, you can talk to them about nutrients, you can talk to them about flushing. You can find exactly how this person treated this plant. Intent matters. When someone is growing a plant for healing purposes and help other people, that plant is going to be better for you than somebody who grew that plant for profit and not really giving you that. But when we lost those cannabis markets, we lost a very valuable point of contact between the farmers and the patients. There was a lot of communication, there was a lot of education going on at those farmers markets. And that, to me, is an ideal paradigm because it empowers the patients in such a way that, say that there's a dozen, 15, 30 booths at a farmer's market. I've been to all these sizes. You're at one table and that particular vendor doesn't talk to you just right, or doesn't price something just right, or you get the wrong vibe, walk to the next table. All of these tables being right next to each other exerts a downward pressure on prices.
I've seen it on TV, yeah.
And I have gotten very good medicine for like $7 or $8 a gram because of the farmer's market paradigm. This guy, he lowers his to 10 and this guy over here lowers his to 8. There's nothing wrong with a little competition in that regard because the patients win. The farmer gets to move his product. I think everybody wins in that sort of situation.
I don't think you're wrong, and I think that we're kind of segueing into something that Access to Love has been working on for the DCCC, which is our Democratic Party in San Francisco has a body which votes and kind of steers all the different Democrats. And on it, you have representatives like from Jackie Spear, Nancy Pelosi, you have people that were elected to it. And one of the things I think Access to Love really sees is this disconnect. And we need to preserve medicine that was actually cared for. And I think that you're not wrong in saying that, you know, one of the things that I hate hearing is I can't wait till I can get a pack of cigarettes that, you know, are joints. And I'm like, oh my God, that's like my nightmare. I know, it is like my nightmare. I mean, you know, it's really spooky.
They're selling those in Washington. It's not from the tobacco companies yet. It's still from the marijuana companies, but it's in packs of pre-rolls.
Yeah, we have a company doing that.
You know, when we're looking at, you know, what's going on and what's going on locally and what's going on at a state level, we started working with an ally that we've known since we had a series of raids in our Sunset District. So, Petra de Jesus has been one of the members of the Democratic Party who used to actually sit on our police commission, who is willing to sponsor a resolution to look into sort of the pitfalls of Prop 64 and MRSA. And interestingly enough, we just had an election, and right before the election, when there was more conservatives on the DCCC, Scott Wiener, who's running for state senate and is definitely not a candidate that I would tell anybody to support, has hung his name on Prop 64 along with his friend Gavin Newsom. So in San Francisco, this rings bells for us. This makes us scared because Scott Wiener is some of what he wants to implement is also going to harm homeless people. Nobody else on the board is willing to put forward legislation, say, to round up our folks that are living the only place that they can, which are in some of our tent cities. So when that crew had more votes on the DCCC, they still had trouble passing a resolution in support of Prop 64 because I found out that they were about to do that, and Access to Love sprung into action. We had 4 hours. They didn't want us to know that they were going to do this, right? We had 4 hours to prepare. We got speakers there, several of whom are here tonight, and we spoke before them, and we lost by 1 vote. Now there's a new seating, a little bit more to our side, but you have to remember that Dianne Feinstein and folks that are a little bit more conservative than your average, say, patient, have a vote on this body too. So it is going to be hard next Wednesday for us to get this resolution through. And I just, if you can indulge me, I'd just like to read it for a moment. I'm going to pass it around. Here's some for the speakers, and then if you guys could pass amongst yourselves. And so I wrote this, Petra de Jesus is sponsoring it, and it just goes, a resolution of the San Francisco Democratic Party to reaffirm sanctuary status regarding Prop 215, the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, implementations of safeguards and to protect patient access to cost-effective medical cannabis. And then you have these little things called whereases, and you only get 2, and then you get 2 resolves. So our first whereas is kind of long and chunky because we only got 2 of them. And the first whereas is on December 7th, 2001, San Francisco was declared a sanctuary city regarding Proposition 215, the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, for medical use, cultivation, and distribution, urging law enforcement and others not to assist in the harassment, arrest, or prosecution of physicians, medical cannabis dispensaries, individual patients, or their primary caregivers. This word's important. Attempting to comply with sections 11362.5 of the California Health and Safety Code. And San Francisco citizens are concerned about the unintended consequences of the combination of the Medical Marijuana Regulation and Safety Act, MRSA, and the current Proposition 64 UMA as it relates to cannabis patients who are low income, disabled, elderly, and or veterans that potentially may lose safe access to medical cannabis due to several factors, including a significant increase in price and in taxes, purported limitations and or qualified conditions that specifically prohibit providing cannabis for free. This is the second whereas, and this is where we're connecting sort of the patient concern with the farmer